Okay, welcome everybody to the Summer Web Workers. This is a really exciting version of this meeting. You have the whole Stratcom crew with you as usual, with Tristan, Max, Tatiana. I think Rebecca's here somewhere, and Jason. And then we have two special guests, in Anthony Horn and Mark Miller, who are joining us from the IET team. They have produced a new tool for SiteFarm called Layout Builder. The Stratcom crew has been using this tool in a different version since we relaunched the website a couple of years back. But they've spent a lot of time refining it and making it a much better tool and adding it to SiteFarm for all of you to use as well. So we're really excited about it. It allows you to jump out of the block layout and create your own custom dynamic home pages and landing pages. And it also brings with it a couple of new components from our home site. So I just want to welcome you all here. We're going to start with kind of a promo video that Anthony and Mark have put together, so to show you all kind of the basics of this tool. One of the things I'll add to that's the most exciting part for me is that it also comes with a content library, so you can create sections or even entire pages and push them into a library that you can then drag into a new page, kind of as a template for a section or a whole layout. Like if you had a section of landing pages you wanted to be very uniform, you could create a template for those and then just pull that in and edit those. So it's really exciting stuff. Without any further ado, I'm gonna play the promo video for you all, and we can get started.
Hello, everybody. I'm Anthony Horn on the SiteFarm team, IET Web Development, and this is
Mark Miller. I'm also one of the developers on the SiteFarm team.
And we have a really cool presentation for you today. We're going to be talking about advanced layouts using Layout Builder.
So what is Layout Builder? It is a way to basically make some advanced pages on your website. So if you're familiar with the basic page, you now have a way to move sections and blocks and positions things where you want as well. There's some extra tools for saving things to libraries, and so you can reuse parts. And so ultimately, you have much more power at your fingertips to get the designs you want, and then also to make sure branding is similar across our community.
So the Layout Builder UI. So this is a big part of this, and it is a way for you to build custom layouts using the basic page content type. So SiteFarm team of Strategic Communications is proud to present this as a feature of the basic page content type. We've been hard at work customizing the Layout Builder experience to give you an advanced page building tool. And so we're going to take a second here to look at that. So you may be familiar with this. We're going to create a basic page. And this is just sort of a high level overview. A lot of this stuff we're going to talk about here in a little bit more detail, and in following presentation, much more detail. So you'll see down here, we're going to go turn off the sidebars so that they're not in the way of our new layout. And we got this layout. You now have this layout tab, which brings you into the Layout Builder interface. And so lots of stuff here. You can see there's notifications you can view and hide. There are extra settings down there that you can view and hide. You can, as Mark mentioned, you can import things. You can see these are some of our new blocks, which we'll talk about as well. But you can see we've done a few upgrades here to stuff like colors, so you can see what you're picking there. And notifications, you have unsaved content. You can turn off these content previews. So just a lot of work has gone into making this experience as nice as possible. You can see you got some layout stuff. There's a lot of configuration here. Again, stuff that we're not going to get into right this second, but we will get into. And lots more, there's tabs and tabs of stuff here. A lot of power at your fingertips. So can be overwhelming, but we're going to try and unpack some of this stuff for you. You can see you can kind of play with that thing now, or the Layout Builder slide out. And that's
Yeah, and if any
probably
of this is looking overwhelming, all of this is additive. You don't have to use it. You can keep doing things the way you've always done it. But this just gives you more power if you want to have a more advanced layout or to try and meet your design needs.
absolutely.
One of the other additions to this that Anthony hit for just a moment is regions override. This is not actually specific to Layout Builder. This can be used on any page, but in your toolbar, there's now that regions override tab where you can remove sidebars, you can remove entire body regions that include things like the title and breadcrumb. You could even get rid of all regions altogether. And the advantage of this is that it's per page, which means if you have a specific page where you don't want some block bleeding through, you can force it to remove all of that. So you can either do it through that tab or you can do it through the actual edit page where now on the sidebar, there's a little drop down for page layout.
And we got a few examples of that here. So this is the default. So if you use Layout Builder and you don't change any of the regions override settings, by default, you get, if your page has content in the first sidebar, content region, and second sidebar. By the way, Layout Builder really outputs all of your layout stuff into that main content area. So that is why regions override is so powerful, is because it allows you to do things like, turn off the sidebars. So a lot of these you may be familiar with these sort of full page layouts, and Layout Builder has all of these multi-column layouts. So really turning off sidebars is probably going to be a go-to for a lot of page building, because it allows you to sort of have full control over your columns in your layout. There's another setting that Mark mentioned, which is remove all regions. And this allows you to remove all regions. You'll see there's not even a header or footer. So if for some reason you want to sort of just blitz everything and do a really custom layout from top to bottom, you can do that.
So the main container for each layout is a section, and each section you can add a layout. A section basically goes the full width of everything, but then within that you could add, for example, a 2-column layout or 3-column, or there's some various different things, and you can stack all of these. So if you want, you could have a 2-column underneath that, a 3-column under that, a 1-column, and any sort of combination you want. And when you add one of these layouts, you then get options. So if you add section, you'll get a pop-up, and you can now govern, for example, the horizontal space for containers. You can add gutters to them. You can control vertical spacing. And so within that, there's a lot of customization.
And we're going to talk a little about that just next. So the customization that Mark's talking about are things like layout. So there are kind of three main sections for section customization. Sorry, that's a little confusing terminology, but you can see that you can control the horizontal layout of your section. You can contain the vertical spacing within the inside of your section and outside of your section, as well as the gutters, which really is how your content is contained within your section. And let me advance that. I swear I know how to use this. So, appearance. Oh, and I'm losing control. Okay. So, more section customizations. We've got within the appearance tab, you can choose background colors and you can choose a background image. And so here's a good example of that. So this campus recreation page, or this page from the ucdavis.edu site, you can see there's a section called campus recreation, but they've got this kind of blue full width image. And this is how you would replicate this in Layout Builder. And then the last section of customizations is custom CSS class, which may also include additional section-specific styles.
Now, all of the sections are nothing more than containers for the content. So the content is still using blocks, which I'm sure many of you are already familiar with. One big difference between the traditional block system and the new system where blocks are in layouts is that blocks are specific to that layout. They're not reusable outside of it. This way you don't have to worry about someone editing one of your blocks and it changed something somewhere else on the website without your knowledge. So every block is specific to its own layout. As well, that means there's no longer any sort of limit on how many blocks you can have. I know a lot of people ran into issues with that in the previous system where you know, they'd have so many blocks and whoops, you can't add any more. So everything is unique to the system. You still have all of your custom block types, and we actually added a couple new ones.
Yay, new blocks. So one of those new blocks is called the alignable promo. And you can see that feature here, or block here. And you can also see that it has some really fun customizations. It is brandable and it can be set to left, center, or right alignment. Again, why we call it an alignable promo, because that's kind of its main feature, is its ability to be aligned. So the color choice affects the button colors, and when possible, it affects the font colors as well. And you can see that we've now set it from its default center to a left alignment, and then right alignment will have that image go to the right.
Another one of our blocks is actually an existing block, but it's just a new style option. So if you're familiar with the marketing highlight horizontal, there's now a new checkbox, which will overlay the title on top of the image and kind of have a nice little animation. And it's also contextual to the size. So if there's not enough horizontal width for the text to be contained, it will actually drop underneath the image so that you don't have weird layout issues happening.
And our final one is called a tile link. And you'll see that these are sort of little tiles that can be linked. And they have some fields for a title, some description, which is is optional, and again, brandable, linkable, and really great for things like horizontal layouts.
So one of the things I'm most excited about is the new section library. So this allows you to save a section with all of its blocks in it to a library, so you can reuse it on your site. So it even does an entire page template. So you can do an individual section, or you can do an entire page of sections. So now if you create a new page and you don't want to have to redo everything from scratch, you can go to your library and import it.
Which brings us to importing from library. So we've got this layout. We don't want to rebuild the thing we just built on some other layout. So we can hit import from library, and it brings up our library. So you can see that when you go to add to library, either for the section or for the entire layout, when you say add to library for the entire layout, it takes all those sections and saves them into a single template. And then when you place it, it places all those sections into the layout wherever it is that you tell it to import. So you'll see there's that import from library button that appears between each of your existing sections in your layout. So if you go between section 1 and section 2 and you import a layout that had 3 sections, all 3 of those sections are going to get placed between that section 1 and section 2. It allows you to, when you save a layout, it allows you, or when you save a section or a layout, it allows you to upload a little thumbnail. If you don't, there's a little default one that kind of shows up that's just kind of a little line drawing. But as you can see here, these are layouts that you can now choose from and place within your design.
And one really cool thing is Strategic Communications has provided several templates that we will have for everyone right out of the box. So if you're going, I would really like a new cool design, but I'm not a designer, you can just import one of our standard templates, and then you can just replace the text, replace an image, whatever you need to alter on it, but you'll have a beautiful design right out of the gate.
And on that tab book, I might mention that we have, if you this is not going to apply to existing sites, but if you spin up a new site in Sitefarm after these upgrades or after this update happens, the homepage is actually built using Layout Builder. So out of the box, you have a layout right as soon as you install to go play with and look at. And so that's a good place too to see how this stuff works.
Yeah, and I guess one thing we should add is that if it won't affect existing sites, so if you've already built a homepage, don't worry, it's not going to blow away your homepage and give you some default thing. Brand new sites will get the new Layout Builder homepage, but it won't affect your existing one. You can go ahead and do it if you want, but you don't have to worry about that.
So that's it for our sort of high level overview. So now we're going to turn it over to Tom, and he's going to make some pages, and you guys can kind of see how the sausage is made.
Okay, thank you, Mark and Anthony. There's a couple of questions here. Obviously, we're going to field some questions before we move on to the next segment. One of the big questions that seems to be on here is that, can you restrict this access by role? So can you have site managers versus site editors who would get access to Layout Builder?
So I'm looking at the permissions right now. I think I'm trying to remember. It looks
it's
like
editors and above.
Content base.
Yeah, editors and above have
editors
access.
above?
Yeah, have access to Site Builder.
Okay.
Contributors do not.
Yeah, so to answer that question, if you all, it seems like a lot of folks were concerned that somebody without the required skill would have access to it, then you would keep them at that contributor role. And then you're going to need to talk to your editors about access to the tool. But as Mark said, it's additive. It's not going to change if somebody's used to an existing Sitefarm role or they do certain things. Unless they want to use this tool, they're not going to have to use this tool, so they can continue on using Sitefarm the way they have been. It's more of a situation where you all now have the ability to say, hey, we have a couple of people who are skilled at this. Let's get them access to this and allow them to make some more dynamic pages. Let me see. Let's go through the rest. So there was a couple of questions about accessibility. Mark's going to address some of that in a video in a little bit. But we have taken that into consideration. There's some fringe cases, as Mark mentioned, that you'll have to be aware of. But for the most part, when you place something, when you place a tile link or an alignable promo, it's going to render in the most accessible. So it's going to show high contrast and all those kind of things. There will be times, like Anthony mentioned in the video, where you've set a branding color for like an alignable promo and you're not seeing it in the title. The reason is it's not accessible on a white background or whatever background you placed it on. So there may be some things where you think you're setting a color, but it doesn't show up. And that's because of that, all that accessibility stuff that they have built into the tool.
Let me clarify one thing here too about the permissions. So the editors can use Layout Builder. What the editors cannot do is like delete or administer the section libraries. They can add new section library templates, but they can't delete those. So there's a little bit of difference there. And then site managers can do all of it.
Okay, cool. Does anyone have any other questions before we move on to kind of the example of building a page? You can speak up if you don't want to be in the chat or if you're afraid to. That's why we moved to this format. So if anyone has anything they want to ask, and don't be afraid to speak up at any point. Obviously during the videos, there's no one to respond to you. So the chat works the best. But afterwards, we'd certainly like to hear from you, trying to make this a little bit more interactive than it has been in the last couple of versions. All right, so we're going to move on now to the You Excited segment, where I'm going to show you kind of how to build a page in a herky-jerky video. So hopefully it works out pretty good for you all. Hold on one second. Hello, web workers. This is Tom Watts from Strategic Communications with another You Excited segment. Today we'll be building a page in the new tool Layout Builder from scratch, so you can see that process and how easy it is to make these custom layouts. So let's get started. First thing you're going to do is you're going to go to content as usual. So we'll go here. We're going to add content. We're going to use that basic page that you've seen displayed in other demos. We'll call this, let's just call this homepage demo WebWorkers. All right, WebWorkers. We're going to pick these page layout options, which I know you've seen in the promo. For this one, we're going to go no sidebar. So it's just takes away the sidebar, keeps the body region if we need it. Also has the header and footer. So we're going to save that. So now we have this blank document. To start the process of creating a page, you have to enter the Layout Builder tool here. So now we're in Layout Builder. You can see we now have the option to add a section or import a section from the library, which we'll talk about in Make It Pretty. But we're going to add a section here. So for time's sake, because I don't want to have to make all these components for you guys over 25 minutes or something like that, we're going to skip here, and I'm going to show you on a page where I can drag those in. So let's just say we're going to try and create a page here. So let's go add section. And we're going to make a hero image. So we're actually going to copy this one here down here. We're going to copy that. So we're going to make a 1 column because it's a hero. We get our label here. We say homecoming hero. Because it's edge to edge, we're going to pick edge to edge. We want to fill the whole screen. And we don't want any spacing on top or the bottom of it, because we're going to have a menu that we're going to add in a second underneath. So let's say we go with no space here. So we're going to remove space entirely, add that section. Cool. So now I'm just going to drag this in here so you don't have to sit and watch me make the component. And we've got our hero in that section. So we have homecoming hero, we've got our section. And now we're going to move on to make a menu for this. So we're going to say add section here. We want to use the priority links menu. So, our icon links that so many of you are familiar with. We have some kind of new innovations with that and Layout Builder. So let's say 1 column again. We're going to contain that content because we want our menu not to stretch the entire screen, but just a portion of the screen. So we'll contain that. And we're going to say we don't want any space on the outside of it because we want to actually overlap our hero. So we'll show you how that's done. As part of that, we're going to go to a section style. Oh, you know what? We have to go back because this is a special section. So let me do this again. We're going to have our hero. We're going to add a section. And this is a priority links section. So here's the priority links. It's a special section. So we're going to call this our menu. And again, we'll go through this process. We want to contain it. We don't want any spacing. And we're going to add that section. Sorry, one last thing with that. It's the old version of that one. So we have our menu here, got our block. Because we're using that priority links menu and we want to do a new thing with it, we want to have it actually float up over the section above it. We're going to use this boxed offset that's specifically designed for this layout. So we're going to hit that. We're going to update that. What you'll see is that makes a box here that kind of floats above. And then we will drag so you don't have to watch me make these. I'm going to drag these focal links into the layout and get you a menu. Okay, we're going to delete this old one that was a placeholder. And we're going to say, so now we have our new menu here. So now we're going to add a section. I'm going to actually take you through a new component really quickly that we don't have in here, that I don't have saved off to the side like a baking show or something. So we're going to add a section here. We're going to use a 1 column layout because this component we're going to add is a full width component. We're going to call it intro. And then here we're going to keep it contain content. And we're going to set, I do like to give this component, which is called alignable promo, some space. So I'm going to give it vertical margins of huge. I'd like to have some space around this one. So now we have this section. You see how we have space around it. Add a block, this new custom block here called alignable promo. We're going to add media to that. Where's our picture? This guy here. And this is a great component. It's really flexible. The only requirement on it is the actual title, but it has a bunch of different permutations. So we're going to show you the traditional use of this, but we've used it in a bunch of different ways on our site. So we're going to say homecoming 23. And the second line is going to be Maggie's week. And give this a description. And we'll give this a button too. For now, we're going to just link it to our athletics page. Say schedule events. Here we're going to say, we'll just copy the same link for sake of time. Say our second button, Aggie. Okay. This component has a couple of options. You can align it left, center, or right. We're going to use left, and we're going to leave the branding color off. I'll show you what this looks like, and we can modify it in a second. So here it is. This is we're going to save layout so you can actually see what it looks like in the layout. We have our header. We've got our menu that floats because we set that section up. And we have our alignable promo. So we have the 2-color intro title, and then we have our description, and we have 2 buttons here. So you can modify this. And now anytime you want to modify any of the components you place in Layout Builder, you need to be within the Layout Builder environment. So you click back in there with layout. And we're going to say, let's modify this to be a brand color for our title. So let's go in and configure. Or back to our menu here, and we can say we want to set a branding color on this of Puda Creek. So what that does is it takes our title, and if it passes compliance for ADA, it's gonna show up in here. If it doesn't, you'll get the default blue color, and then it'll show up in the buttons. The brand color will show up in the buttons. But here, this one's passed contrast, so we've got that in our title and our buttons here. We can save that off. And now I've got that set up there. Here's a section below here that we want to recreate. So again, I won't make all these components because we don't have enough time, but I'll show you how to make this background section here. So let's go in here and say layout again. We're going to add a new section. This is a 3-column. And it's going to be our feature section. And let's say we're going to go edge to edge to keep that color edge to edge. And we're going to add that section. All right, now we don't have a color or any of that set, and we want to contain these blocks. So let's go back into feature section. And we're going to say in the gutters, we want to add a contain content here. So we're going to add gutters so that the content has a little bit of spacing on the outsides. And then we want to add a background color. So let's go to the appearance tab here. And we're going to say we want it to be Wonder Blue. So let's add that. We're also going to remove the default background color from blocks, which if you dragged any kind of block in there, it might have like a white background on it or something like that. We're going to remove that by hitting this here. And actually, let's give this a background image too, or not. So let's go. We have a gun rock in here. Let's grab him. And we have him, and we can pick where he's going to show up. So we're going to put him on the right bottom, and we're going to say contain. So that means he's not going to repeat or stretch across the screen. He's just going to be sitting in this contained little area. and we'll put that in here. And now we've got them. You can see them hiding in that little corner. And for sake of time, actually, we're going to fix one last thing. We're going to show the header. So the header allows you to have a little introduction to your section, a little title area. So let's do that and update that. So now you see this block here, we have that's for our header. So we can put our header in there. We're going to drag these in because you guys don't want to watch me type anymore, I'm sure. So let's drag these in here. We've got our header and then these little text block things that I made. And all of a sudden we've got a pretty good little section going. Although our background's a little funky, so we may have to fix that. Let's delete this placeholder. So you just don't have to look at that. And you can see, save that layout. Okay, so we got a background in there. We need a little spacing. It's pretty tight in here, so let's modify that. So let's go back into the layout, to your section. We're going to modify the spacing. One of the things that's nice about this tool is you can go back and fix it anytime you want. Including if you've imported something into your page that doesn't look quite right, you can make changes to it. So we're going to change our spacing, interior spacing for that. So not the outside spacing, but the interior. So inside of the section, we're going to choose, let's go huge. And we'll give it some space. So now you can see the space we've added to the bottom and the top. And you know, I'm going to go back and I'm going to change my image. I think I can tweak my image enough. Let's see. So we'll go back into our appearance. Got our image there. Let's give him, let's put him here. Let's see if that makes it better. Oh, it's still kind of funky. So we'll just leave him there. But you at least know how to do it. So you can put in a background image. So let's save that layout, see what it looks like. We've got our guy there. We've got our intro header here, and we've got our components in here as marketing highlights, which you're familiar with. So we're going to do one more thing. We're going to recreate this section right here, which is another new component called link tiles that came from the UC Davis flagship site. So let's make that really fast. All right, so let's go back in the layout. We're going to create another section below here. This one has 4 columns, because we need all 4 for those link tiles. We're going to call it link tiles section. And we're going to say a couple things here. So the way we get the link tiles to be right next to each other without anything in between them is to say remove gap between columns. So we don't have any gutter between each item in the columns. Are going to be flushed together. So we're also going to create that as an edge to edge because we want to go all the way across. And vertical spacing we're going to remove because we want this to fit up next to the section above it. So we're going to say that, and we're going to add that section. Now we've got our section right there. And for sake of time, again, I'm just going to drag these in here. You have to watch me make these. They're really easy to make, these link tiles. It's a great new component, and I'll show you what it looks like in just a second. But let's delete the placeholder and see what this looks like. So, now we have our section here. We made it, and we have our section right up next to the section above it. So we've got our link tiles. You can see the component here. You get a title, an icon, and a little description on hover, which is kind of nice. And it's a nice little interaction for your site. So that's the basics of making a page. We're going to get into the real power of Layout Builder in Make It Pretty. So thanks for sitting through this, building this page with me in You Excited. Let's move on to Make It Pretty and show you how fast you can make something coming out of the library. So that's up next. Thanks again. All right. Does anybody have questions on that? I know it's not a comprehensive And one of the challenge when I was coming to make these presentations, one of the challenges with this tool is there's so much that you can do now that you're going to have a lot of questions, and it's actually really intuitive and not that complex. But the Sitefarm team is going to have documentation on all this. We're going to have lots of tutorials and videos that you can watch along with the videos from this presentation that you'll have access to. But yeah, you'll see as you go into the tool, it's actually a lot more intuitive, in my opinion, than the block layout. It allows you to kind of, build it's much more like other CMSs that you maybe have had access to, or at least site builders that you've had access to in the past. So it should be a little more intuitive. Right now, Dana asked if the background image has an opacity feature. It does not currently have an opacity feature. You could get around that by making a transparent PNG. So if you wanted to put a PNG in there that had a lighter opacity, you could do it that way. We don't currently have a feature for that. That is one of the things, we were discussing before putting the presentation together. This is an iterative process. Go ahead, Anthony.
You can also, if you don't want to do a transparent PNG, if you do a JPEG, or a lot of this stuff is design stuff. So I mean, you're like, if you're good, like the Gunrock image, like if you're not just able to download it somewhere, you're going to have to kind of put it together. But sorry, to finish my thought, as long as your background is the same color as the color you set the background to, visually, no one will know the difference, whether it's a PNG with a transparency or just a JPEG with the same color background. I've done both, messing around with the layout builder. So as long as the colors match, you can make it look like it's just one image, But it's some of this stuff to do these really advanced things. I know, Tom, I think on your guys' website you have like the elements package, which has a bunch of design elements that you could probably go through and find and use for some of these backgrounds. But some of this stuff, might take a little bit of, especially like trying to get that Gunrock to sit off to one side. You might just need to create a banner with the Gunrock to one side and upload that as your background to get it to position kind of how you want it.
Yeah, and so one of the things we talked about before the presentation was just the idea, like this is a huge leap forward for Sitefarm, and you're going to notice that right away when using the tool. Of course, there's things like transparency for background, or some of the tweaks you might want, like a shade on background images or something like that. All that feedback is going to be valuable for us. So if you can bring that to us, those things will be considered as upgrades for the future of the tool. So obviously it's a really comprehensive tool as it stands right now, and it's excellent. But your feedback will help to make it more usable for your team and the teams across campus. So we welcome any feedback and would love to see that, because it helps us make great things. And we just went through the process of testing this thing out and kicking the tires on it for the last couple of weeks. And even in just that time, with a couple of us working on it, we noticed all kinds of things that we want to tweak and fix and work with. So this community is going to be essential to upgrading this tool. But you'll notice right away, and I've already noticed myself, that it's excellent and such a huge upgrade. And I was already using Layout Builder on our site, and this is a huge improvement over that. So I think you're going to be more than happy with the tool. But again, any feedback you have is certainly welcome.
I think we've got one outstanding question about the tile, and can we change the title text from white? Corey Jacobs asked that.
As of right now, it's default white on the regular layout, so you can't brand the actual text because of the challenges with accessibility with images behind it. So white was really the only thing that we could put in that would be even mildly accessible at this point. So we can consider that, but one of the things that's so nice about that tool is that I know Mark Miller himself has put a ton of work into the contrast and accessibility stuff. And so when you get that rollover effect, all of those will meet accessibility and contrast standards. So that will not always be white based on the contrast of the background color. But yeah, as of right now, the marketing tile cannot have different text colors than white for the default presentation.
Yeah, I found that when I was messing with that like you kind of have to err on the side of a generally darker image to get the contrast to really stand out on the type there. There has certainly been discussions about the possibility of there being a way to darken the background on a lighter image to make sure that that contrast is there just for visibility in general.
Yeah, for both that one and for the horizontal marking highlight with text over image, you have to use discretion as far as what you're doing. So if you put in a image that's too light and you can't see the text, then you're going to have to change it for you if you want to be accessible. We are, like Anthony said, looking at upgrading the components so that they could have a shade added to them like the hero does. We have another question from Corey Jacobs. Is the hover change optional for the tile links? It is not. It's part of the tool. So there's probably ways you could make. Actually, it'd be pretty tough to spoof that without using the hover. So right now, it is not an option. Cool. Well, I think that's
actually. Could I ask a quick question? It'd be quicker for me to do this there than type it in chat.
Yes.
Just curious about layout management. If, say, one site editor creates a layout, saves it to the library, and creates a bunch of pages, and then another editor comes along and accidentally deletes that layout, or are the pages affected, or is there a restriction once you've created some pages with a layout, that layout can't be deleted, say, from the library?
Sean just touched on this. You're all the only ones.
Anthony, we're kind of losing you on audio. Anthony, we're sort of losing. Let me address this. So the way it works when you're doing the templates is when you bring in a template, it does a full copy. So you can, once you bring in a template onto a page and you start using it, you can go and delete the template. You can delete other pages or whatever. It doesn't matter. It just kind of creates a copy of that stuff into your layout. So there's no harm in, even if you wanted, if there, let's say you wanted to create 5 pages that were pretty similar, but those were the only 5 pages you ever wanted to create, you could create the layout once, save it as a template, add that template, to your other 5 pages, then delete the template when you're done. So there's no risk at all to deleting templates after you've added them to your pages. Did that answer your question, Duke?
Yeah, that's it. Great. Thanks, Sean.
Can I ask a follow-up question just for clarity?
Yeah.
So I create page A and I have a layout that I save. And then Tom uses that layout to create page B. And then I go back and I change my layout in page A. That doesn't affect what was originally what was saved to the library, correct?
That's correct. It doesn't change the library at all, and it doesn't change your page B either. So
it's a snapshot in time of when you hit save for that layout section.
Yeah, Sean said it's basically a copy and paste.
Yeah, it's a save and then copy and paste. Every time you use a template somewhere, it's just copying that template, and then you can start overwriting it, which is the purpose of the templates, as I'm sure Tom's about to get into here, which is, bring in the templates that Tom's created for everybody look really awesome, but obviously they're not the text and images you're going to want on your site. You're going to want to go and change those, but it kind of has all the right settings, and I'm stealing his thunder and I apologize. So go ahead, Tom, tell him all about that.
No thunder stolen. Yeah. So I think we'll play the video in just a second, but the basic idea of the whole process is that it's a copy and paste of design elements, essentially, is the best way to think of it. The content, you're obviously going to need to change, as Sean said, the links, the images, all of those things will need to change. But we will be providing you with these kind of, out of the box, templates that you can just use and copy. So let's get into the video. I'll just play it real quick. Hopefully this one's a little better than the last one. Here we go. Hello, web workers. It's Tom Watts from Stratcom again. This time bringing you a segment of Make It Pretty. So we just got finished with UX segment of putting together a homepage in Layout Builder, but now we're going to really unleash the full power of Layout Builder using the library items. So I'm going to show you how to build a page from the library items we've already created in our Layout Builder library. So let's get started really quickly. We're going to go back into content as usual, and we just went through this in the other one, so I'm going to gloss over some of this. We're going to add our content, basic page. We're going to call this library demo. And we're going to set this up as a no sidebars. So header and footer only, with the ability to keep our body regions if we need to. And we're going to save that off. So now we have that empty layout again. So now, where it took us quite a long time to create our homepage, just building the page manually, although still much faster than traditional site farm, now we can unleash the power of this tool. So let's see what we're going to do here. We're going to say layout again, get on into Layout Builder. So where we added sections before, we're now going to import them from the library. So when you click this button here, you're going to get a bunch of different options here. So you can see a list of already pre-created components and sections that you can just plop in here. So let's go with, we're not going to do the full page stuff now, but let's just grab, grab an intro section. I think there's an intro section here. Yeah, here we go, intro section. So now we clicked intro section. We have our alignable promo that's in there already. Obviously, there's going to be text in here you want to change, but we're in Layout Builder right now, so we can just go in here and say configure. And we could add an image to it. Why don't we do that? Let's add an image. Grab one of these. Let's grab this one. Selected. So now we have an image. We're going to just say research is fun, the best. Davis. And we'll just change this to say our native description. Paste that in a couple of times to fill it out. Oops. Okay, and we'll give it, we'll leave learn more. Take this out. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to give it a branding color. So let's give it an alignment. So we have our new image. Actually, I'm going to show you what it looks like center. So we're going to center align it, and we're going to give it a branding color of Creek. Let's update that. So now we have a new section full here. I don't like that centered alignment on that. That image is too big. So we'll go back in here and we'll say left aligned. There we go. All right, so now we have our own custom alignable promo intro section that we just drew in there. So we didn't have to put all that stuff together. It's just modified the existing section. So let's add another section from library. Let's import it from library. Let's say we want 3 link tiles to kind of expand on this page. So boom, we've got 3 link tiles. We go in here, we can change our titles. Say graduate, search, change our image, have a different one. Do we have a research image is the question. Let's just grab. Oh, we'll grab that one. Let's just do that. So we got that. And then we have learn all about and we're going to change this to Put Creek to keep them consistent. Okay, so we have our new tool in there right there. We can just go in and modify all these. So we'll do that really quickly. I'm not going to change the images just to make it a little easier on you guys. So it's undergraduate. Say undergraduate research at UC Davis is great. Okay, and we're going to change our color again to Pretty Creek. And we'll just keep that random link in there. Okay, so now you can see we can modify this whole section. Get back in here, I'll modify this one really quick. Just say research. Let's get this. Say, and we're going to say and we'll change our color to Pretty Creek. Boom, we have a new section here. We're going to save our layout just to see what this all looks like. So we have our intro section here, and we've got now our link tiles here underneath. And those are all going to be part of our new page. So you can see everything's accessible. We've got all our contrast stuff. You know, our IT team worked really hard to make sure all these components will work for you and all of your users. And let's go back in the layout. We'll put one more section in just to show you how easy this is. So let's import from library again. Let's see. Let's do a text, a traditional text. This is a text section with focal links. So now, boom, we have just click the button and you have a ready to go section that you can just, you know, edit here. So we just go in here and configure this. And we already have this in research, so we're just going to leave it at that. But you can make anything, or you can add more text to this, modify it however you need to. It gives you a great way to just get your page started. That way, you know, instead of creating a focal link from scratch, you can go in and just edit an existing one. You know, change the icon and color, and you've got something new, right? So, you know, we've got something new and different. So this is the real power of the tool. And beyond even this, you have these sections. We can do something even more creative here and quick. Let's do this. We're going to save this layout. So now we can, let's make an entire page here. So let's say you need a home page. You don't want to think through the layout. You just want to put something together and have it ready and then modify it to meet your needs. You can just go here and say, we're going to go content again. We'll go through this whole process that we've just done. We're going to call this demo library homepage. We're going to give this some sidebars again and save it. Got our section, and we're going to say layout and import from library. And we're going to say we want that whole homecoming homepage in our site. And boom, you just add it, and the whole thing is in there. You have every component aligned exactly how it was aligned with all the settings that you have. And so what you can do is, you know, you can create, I think it's especially powerful for landing pages, because you can create a standard landing page type layout for your sites, and you can just keep dropping them in from the library and modifying them with your new content. So, you know, you could go in here, obviously, and modify any of these things to change any of this by, you know, this is now Causeway Classic. You know, leave tradition because it's the same thing, and we'll say tickets to the game, and we'll leave everything else the same. Boom, we have a new page, Causeway Classic, tickets to the game. We can modify our menus. We can do anything we want. These components, when you change them here on the library clone page, you're not going to change them throughout your website like that happens now with your blocks. So these only live on the page you've created. When you create a new page from the library, it's another new page with a whole set of new components that you can modify. And it doesn't, these aren't going to, you know, contribute towards your block limit. So these are just out there in the ether. They're on these pages. You can make as many as you want. You can modify them any way you want. You can create, you know, a bunch of different templates for your site that can make creating content, especially for folks that may not have, if you have a set of content contributors that don't have any design skill, you can just give them these templates and say, hey, just use this, you know, change the titles, change the buttons. I have a set of images for you, and you can quickly make pages in Sitefarm that you know would take you normally maybe a day to create a whole page. You can put these together in half an hour if it's coming from a template. And then if you want, you can, you know, we can go back in here. Let's say we want to modify this page. We can go grab, say we want one of those link tile sections. We're going to put that in here. So oops, we're going to go back here and say import from library, and we're going to say 3 tile links. So boom, we have our 3 tile links. We can modify those with athletics pictures and links and colors and do whatever we want. That's going to be a new thing. So this, in my opinion, is the most powerful part of the new layout builder tool. I know that you all are probably very excited about having the ability to make custom layouts and have these new components and all of that. But I think the power comes from these libraries where we can add and you know, create these web ecosystems for departments that are consistent and easy and put together quickly. So you can make, if you get a request from somebody to make a landing page for a campaign or something in a day, which happens to us sometimes, we could easily just grab a page that we have set up in that format from the library. Now we have a framework, and we can change out the content and component, or the content and media, and you have the page done in a couple of hours where it would have taken you days or weeks previously. So this is the real power. Thank you for joining me for Make It Pretty. We'll have questions and answers at the end. I look forward to talking about more about Layout Builder. Thank you. Okay, any questions on the library stuff that we haven't covered? Does anyone have so there's a couple of questions about the accessibility of the link tile. Yeah, they've created it in a way that it's accessible. The descriptions are also accessible by screen readers. And then also you have on top of that, the alt text for the image, which is part of the media library, like Anthony mentioned. Any other questions about what we just showed you? So somebody asked, can we share layouts across multiple Sitefarm instances? No, it will be within each instance. So you will have the ability to create library items for your Sitefarm instance only, not across multiples. We will have the library pre-populated with templates that we've created for you. So we kind of can centrally distribute them, but we can't do that within Sitefarm, across Sitefarm environments. Okay, well, keep your questions coming in the chat. What we're going to do now is move on to Anthony's presentation for Sitefarm deep cuts, where he's going to go a little bit more into detail about that spacing and alignment feature for the sections. So let's move on to that.
Hey everybody, this is Anthony again. Welcome to Sitefarm Deep Cuts. So we're gonna go over how to do some spacing and margin padding, whatever you want to call it, spacing outside, spacing inside, basically how to take all your components in Layout Builder and space them so they look nice. So we're going to start by adding some content and of course basic page, because that's our Layout Builder's configured with. We're going to say our awesome demo spacing and layout builder. All right. For time being, I'm going to leave all this stuff blank. I am, for fun, going to add a primary image. We're going to set this to no sidebars, and we're going to go ahead and save this. So, ta-da, we've got basic page ready to be laid out. And if we go to layout, you'll notice that there is already some stuff, a section with some stuff. If I had put content in the body field, document field, or tags field, it would already be showing up on the page since those fields were not filled out. It is not. So we're just gonna get rid of that for now. We don't need it. We're gonna start from total scratch here. So let's see. Let's do this. I'm going to, for the sake of time, I'm going to import my super cool layout start state. And so this is all basically just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections, including the body section, which again we probably don't need. So this is 5 sections, and hold on, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 sections, 5 sections, 5 sections. And if we save this, and I'm going to go ahead and just open this in another browser window that's not logged in so we can see the spacing as it would appear to somebody who's just viewing the site. So let me pull that up real quick. So here's our super awesome layout. And as you can see, the alignment spacing is not super awesome, right? So we've got some really nice blocks, but they don't look nice the way they are currently. So let's figure out how to do that. So again, for the sake of time, I'm going to go back to my layout and I'm going to say, look, I'm just going to reverse engineer this. We're going to go ahead and start from a state that is everything looking nice, and I'm going to show you how I made it look nice. So we're going to remove these. And here we go. We're going to re-import from our library, and this time we're going to go super cool complete. So you'll see that these are all now kind of laid out. There's the background colors and the header blocks turned on there, or the header section is turned on. We have some more layout, some interesting stuff here. So yeah, let's save this real quick. And again, just to show you what this looks like when someone logged out. We've got this, our primary image, our title, this nice alignable promo. We've got this section here with these great little link tiles. Another alignable promo that is set to go the opposite direction. So we got this one flushed left and this one flushed right. And then we've got a marketing highlight horizontal overlay and some content. And then we've got some focal links. So this is a really great little layout. How did we do it? So let's go look at that. Going back to our layout, you will notice that if we edit, that we're going to skip this stuff for now. I just want to show you the vertical spacing. So there's a lot of little vertical spacing. If you can't get it to look right with just setting, because when you don't check this, you get default. You can set the outside and the inside. So the outside is outside of your thing, outside of your section, and the inside of your section is the spacing inside of your section. So you'll see that I have it all set to default here, except at the bottom, because when you start a page, you don't need a lot of white space there. You could add a little extra white space there. It wouldn't hurt, but I think there's not a lot of good reason for a big white space there. So let's just start kind of, it helps with the above the fold part of design. You know, this is a pretty big page. You know, I'm on a pretty big monitor and I still can barely see the first bit of content. So I'm trying to keep things sort of above the fold. But I did add a huge space there that kind of matches the space at the top of this one, this next section. So you'll see that our next section has large set for inside and outside the content. So what that means is that there is some large spacing here and some large spacing there. And again, looking at our thing, that is this space here and this space there. So I think we might have some what's called margin canceling going on, since I've got the top one set to huge as well. So that's possible, but I essentially just went through these and set them to whatever looked right. And if it wasn't enough, I just added more, and it was too much, I added less until I got everything the way I wanted it. So, and in some cases I set just the top and bottom, or the outside, inside, the same thing. And some of these I had to go and set them individually. So yeah, like this one, outside huge, inside default. That seemed to work fine for that particular section. Oops. Coming down here, we've got, you know, outside huge, inside default. Maybe that's what we're just looking at. This one, we've got outside medium, inside huge. And then down here, since this is the last one, we've got the outside bottom set to small and the outside top set to huge. So we'll talk about the very last section last. So we're gonna go up to the top. The other thing to look at, I want to take a look at is the horizontal containment. So you'll see that we have the option to contain our content, to make our content narrow, or to make our content edge to edge. So currently it is contained. What that means is our content, this one happens to sort of squish itself a little bit. So this is our container. And inside of this, you know, these dotted lines you can kind of see on the left or right is our section. Oh, this blue bar is our section. So our section is this, but our content is just contained. This is fine. This looks good. It might not look good with other blocks, but let me show you something. So we have in the appearance settings, we have a way to turn on a background color. So I'm going to turn on blue and we'll see what happens. So there you go. Our alignable promo has a white background over a blue background. So that's not ideal, right? So what we can do is, if we don't want, all blocks by default have a white background. If we don't want the white background, you can go to appearance and remove the default colors from this block. Now, there's some helper settings here. For some reason, after you turn this off, it doesn't look right. You can use this light text on dark background or dark text on light background to try and make the contrast of the text stand out a little better on certain colors. But for now, we're going to just look at the default and see what that looks like. So there we go. It got rid of my background, but because my background is no longer white, those colors no longer are accessible contrast on this dark blue. So you can see that my block is actually adjusted to work, to have appropriate accessible color contrast. But you can also see that, again, I've got this blue background and it's sitting on this white background. So that's not always what you want, right? So we can do narrow, which is another setting. And what that'll do is it actually makes this section even more narrow. So you can kind of do like a branded block sort of thing with your blocks doing this. But another thing you do if you want to do like a full width colored background is you can set it to full width. And you'll see that the whole thing is now full width. But we also have these settings for gutters. So what this does is it allows you, now that our section is full screen width, our content is going to go the full screen width unless we contain it somehow. So currently we have no gutters, so our content's going to go fill the whole width. So if we set it to contain, what that does is it kind of gets us back to where we started, except with a colored background. So our content is now contained within the normal bounds of the web page. Usually the normal bounds of the web page sort of line up with the header and stuff, but not this particular header. Anyway, so also we can go to narrow, so we can kind of do what we did above, which is now we've got this full with colored background, but our content's a little narrower. So lots of configuration options there, and lots of things you can do to try and get your content to do what you wanted to do within a particular section. I'm going to set this back to that. I'm going to turn off the colored background. We're just going to leave that like it was. Our next section is section 2. And what I did with this one from its default state was add a colored background, that dark blue. I'm a big fan of alternating between white and some sort of branding color. You can do a branding color against a branding color, and I can certainly try and show you that if we have time. But this section, I turned on the color, I knocked out the white backgrounds, and I said, full width, please. Go ahead and contain my content, and show the header. So there's a checkbox here. Click this box, check this box if a header region should be added to the above columns. And so what that did is it added a header region, and I can actually add more than one block to this header region, but I only added one. And what I added was a basic block with no content. I told it to display the title. I gave it a title, and then we have all these block title styles. And we have one called center underline. So this is sort of designed for this sort of use case where you have this big full width thing and you want a title centered. So we're going to leave that there. But that's how I got that. You can turn it off. But if you turn it off after you've put content there, it's going to give you a message, or it's supposed to give you a message letting you know that you've got content there. I swear I've seen it. Let's see. There it is. So it's going to warn you, it's a warning. You have content in the header, but you've hit it via config. You should probably remove the content. So this is so you don't forget stuff there. I don't know if there might be a negative effect of that. I would assume we have a warning for a good reason. So, oh, I have content there. I didn't mean to do that. Why don't we just turn it back on? So another fun setting, which you might have saw just below that, was remove the gaps. So we've got these 4 tile links. And what that does, if we say remove the gaps between columns so that they touch, that will allow us to remove the gaps. And now we have these guys touching. And here, let's save this layout real quick. And I am going to come over here. And we are going to just sort of hover over. See that now they've lost their gaps, and it doesn't work. Probably doesn't look good with everything, but it certainly looks good with these. So you may have seen this layout actually again on the UC Dave site, EDU site, where they have marketing these link tiles that are sort of all butted up against each other. So it's kind of a nice effect. I like it. So that's how you would do that. I'm going to go back to that. We can just leave that on. I think that looks nice. I don't think there's any reason for us to change that at the moment. Again, another alignable promo section. Again, maybe we want this one to be a little bit more contained. So we set it to contain. And now it's a little narrower. Maybe we want it to contain, but that doesn't look good to us. So maybe we remove a little bit of this text, or we refactor the text so that it's a little shorter. And so now we've got it making a little sense. Maybe there's too many buttons. Maybe we say, all right, well, we only want the one button. Now it's a little bit more manageable. There we go. That looks nice. And then we've got another colored section. So again, this doesn't have to be blue. I just put them in blue because I thought it was nice. Let's say we want rec pool. So we've got rec pool. I don't know if I like that with the orange button. So maybe we pick a different color. Let's go with like bouquet. Oh, nice one. There we go. That looks nice. So we've got a nice marketing highlight horizontal overlay and some content. It's just a basic block with a header and a list and a button. And you'll notice that they're kind of not equal. So this was the 2-column. And when you use some of these layouts, they come with a column width selector. By default, this one was 50-50. You'll see there it is, 50-50, but you can certainly change it to whatever you think looks good. So in this case, I like 67-33. I set it. And ta-da, 67-33. So we got a nice little layout there. Let's see. This might be a good spot to talk about just a fun little tool in your toolbox. Hopefully we have a better way to do this at some point. But at the moment, if I import from my library, say my marketing highlight or overlay section, and I want, let's pretend I just created a new section and I put in a marketing highlight horizontal overlay, and I say, you know what, I want 2 of them here. It's gonna take me like another couple minutes to type out this whole thing. Why can't I just like copy paste this thing here? Well, unfortunately, there's not a copy paste and there's not a clone feature, but what you can do is if you have this thing saved into a layout or a layout with one of these saved in it, you can just sort of bring it in real quick, say, all right, well, give me another one of those. And let me just grab this and drop it in this region. And no thanks, I don't need that anymore. Ah, look at that. I got myself two marketing horizontals, and now I can just come in here and change the configuration real quick. Maybe I want to change the image. Sure. Maybe I want to change the image. Maybe I want to change the branding. So there we go. Real quick change. So that's that. We have, I'm going to delete this section because we don't need it. So the last section is this, and we're going to delete this because we're not using it. So this is the last section on our page. Now, I suggest you always end, if you're doing these full width sort of banner, full edge to edge sort of sections stacked on top of each other, I suggest you always end with white, and here's why. The layout builder gets output through the node output or main content region, which is why we knocked out the sidebar so that the main content region goes full width. But there is a little bit of white that's added to the above the footer of the website it's there because there are other regions besides the footer that are, it's just part of the system. It's there. And I'll show you what I mean. Like if I added a background to this section, let's say, I don't know, let's do double decker, and let's knock out our backgrounds. That's fine. So there we go. We also want to do edge to edge, and we'll contain our content. So now we've got that, and oh well, there's no spacing there. So on the inside I want large, and on the outside I want huge, and on the inside I want large, and on the outside bottom, let's just leave it small for the time being. You can see that if I save this, come over here, that there's some white there. And even if I do this, there's a setting for the inside outside here that is outside bottom. If I set this to remove space, so let's say I try to remove it completely, and save it. It still isn't quite all gone. It's close, but there's still a little something there. So this is why I suggest you just use white for the background of your last section if you can, because you're not going to be able to get rid of that. If you start filling with CSS and like the theme appearance, you're going to end up screwing up other parts of the website. So it's just best for now to just do that, except that your last section is going to need to be white unless you're doing some serious custom theming. The other thing is, you notice that we had that setting for no space outside, and what the section we can say inside section bottom remove space, and we'll go down here and we'll say inside section top or outside section top remove space and update, save layout, and we should now got a little something. It's almost there. I see some space. So what's going on there? Let's see. Got moving inside section top bottom. Let's just do this like medium, large. This one is space. That should work. There we go. So yeah, so you can see you can actually create, like if you want to do a page that's a couple of different colors seamlessly, maybe you wanted a red background, blue background, red background, you can do that. And you can get rid of all the space in between. And in this case, you probably want to add some more space in to the inside below this so that that sort of matches the space above the components in this section. But yeah, so there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do. And, you know, this stuff really does look good, even in mobile, you know, components are great, you know, so I think this is just amazing. And I hope that this was helpful in sort of understanding what all those spacing, all that configuration, why all that configuration is there, and how it's really there to help you really build pretty well aligned and spaced layouts that kind of do what you want and give you the tools you need to sort of replicate a lot of the branding layouts that you've seen, and layouts that, and hopefully you can create some really great layouts that you can share in the future with people. So I'm looking forward to continuing to work on this, and thanks for your time.
All right, thank you for that, Anthony. Obviously, there's a lot of different permutations of all that alignable content stuff, and I know there were some questions. Eric asked a question about the relative sizes of each of those measurements from, you know, default, medium, large, huge, fast, all those. We can certainly get you those. It's part of, if you, I think Mark addressed the question where you can see those measurements in the tool. But there is going to be some, you know, basically trial and error for some of that as you're building these pages, which is pretty common in most site builders. So, you know, we didn't eliminate all of that stuff. We're certainly open to input on, you know, naming those and that kind of thing. So we can make it work best for you all. But as for right now, you'll probably have to do what Anthony did, which is, you know, you make the settings and you take your best guess, and then you take a look at what you've got, and then you adjust them from there. The good news is you have the ability to do that, and you know, the versions of SiteFarm previous to this, where you had your kind of consistent layout in the block layout, you couldn't do much. And so what we saw in a lot of sites was a lot of strange alignments and spacings and things like that. Does anyone else have any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to go through the chat here. We have, let's see, Adriana asked, yes, you can access Layout Builder on all pages, all basic pages, as Mark mentioned. So if it's an article or something like that, you're not going to be able to jump into Layout Builder and reconfigure the entire page. It's based on the basic page. Dana asked how will these sections display on mobile? Most of them are going to react the same way they have in SiteFarm. So if you have a sidebar, it's going to come first, and then the content will be below that, unless you've adjusted that differently. It will be the same way in a section. So if you have 3 columns, the column on your far left is going to display first in mobile. So just something you need to keep in mind, like if you have a floated box or something like that, if you have it left aligned, that's the first thing people will see. So you do have to kind of test, just like you would in any other page you're creating. You're going to have to test the output a little bit on your own to see what works best. Let's see.
Continuing on that, Mark mentioned something, but I don't think we've talked about it much, which is the basic sidebars layout. So Mark, do you want to just sort of talk briefly about what that means?
Yeah, the basic sidebar layout works exactly the same way that everything does traditionally. So it has drop-down options where you can say how your sidebars will render. So for example, if you need your first sidebar in mobile to be above the content, then you can specify that. If you want like a split, so that let's say you have a second sidebar, your first sidebar will technically render over on the right. Visually, it'll look like a second sidebar, and when it goes to mobile, that'll go on top. So this way, if you have like some filters for a view or something that you always want at the top of your page, you can put those, even though visually it looks like it's in the second sidebar, it's still technically in the first. Anyway, there's options and a drop down, but that will work the way our site traditionally does.
There's a similar function existing in SiteFarm right now under the appearance settings for choosing pages how you would want to render that. So we tried to kind of duplicate that, but in the layout builder. So it's not site-wide. It's only for that one particular page.
And I would,
for one for that particular layout.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just going to add to that. What I would encourage folks to do, if you're using Layout Builder to create these dynamic layouts, is try your best to avoid the sidebars. One of the challenges with SiteFarm is that we have a lot of sites with like 2 sidebars and really restricted content in the middle and things like that. The whole point of Layout Builder is for you to be able to break out of that, and you still have the opportunity to create like a pseudo sidebar in a section, right? So you can create content that's contextually appropriate to your main kind of larger section within, or larger column within a section, right? So do try and break out of that. It's one of the challenges we face kind of presenting our user experiences out to all of our different audiences, is when we do those double sidebars, because we're trying to get all kinds of content in there. Not only is it a challenge on mobile, as we've just talked through, but it's even a challenge on desktop for users to see that. It's kind of an information overload. So try and use these pages to give yourself some room, some white space. the ability to kind of create that rhythm that Anthony alluded to, with, like, you have a dark section and a light section and those kind of things throughout the page, to ease that visual burden on your users. I think that's one of the big goals of this project, is to give you the opportunity to do that in a much more fluid way, instead of that kind of restrictive layout. So do keep that in mind. And I'll leave you with this. I always tell my my interns that every page you're presenting to your users is like an essay. So it should basically have an introduction with a thesis, some supportive content, and a conclusion. And so that's really hard to do when you've got two giant sidebars on each side, right? Because those are interfering with your whole essay. So try and think of that as you're putting these pages together. So we have a couple more presentations. Thank you for staying with us this long. I know it's a lot, but we're really excited about this tool. We have one more from Mark Miller about the kind of the pitfalls to avoid with the new tool. And then we circle things up with a bonus presentation from Tatiana Muniz about SEO in layout. So it's not Layout Builder specific, but just talking about how your layouts, so once you get this access to these new layouts, how those will affect your search engine optimization. So let's go to Mark's presentation really quick.
The sections in Layout Builder give you the sections in Layout Builder give you the opportunity to change the background on any individual section. So if you configure the section, you can go to Appearance. There is now a tab for background color. So if I want, I can make this Aggie Gold and update it. You will see that the background has now changed. However, the component, the block itself, still has its original background and coloring. So if you need, you can get rid of all of this by clicking this little checkbox right here that says remove the default background color from blocks. Once you check that, it will open up a new option, which is force text color changes. Most of the time, the overwhelming amount of time, just leave this at default. And what that will do is it will automatically figure out what the contrast color should be to go with this background. So if I change this background color to a darker, it will then automatically swap the colors out for something that has a correct contrast color for accessibility. Now, that's fine most of the time. However, sometimes you will be using an image. So if we look at this, it actually has no background color, but it does have this light colored image. So in this case, it happens to work because dark text happens to be the default. So this is probably fine for most cases. Again, I added the checkbox here to remove the background. So if that wasn't there, you would have your block background appearing. Remove that, leave it at default, and it should all work. The trouble comes in when you have a dark background image. The system doesn't know what color your image is. You have to decide that for yourself. So there's actually text here, you just can't see it. So if we go to Appearance, this is where the force text color comes into play. So we want to actually force light text on a dark background. And now our text will show up just fine. If I were to save this, we can scroll down, see that everything works. But let's say worst case scenario, this thing has some problems and it actually doesn't render correctly. So let's say this image is broken. Everything's still here, but that person's not going to be able to read your text. Probably a very fringe thing that's going to happen, but just in case, there is a way to get around that. And you can actually do it without even trying to figure out forcing the color. So instead of choosing light on dark, you can actually give this a default background color. And it's not there because the image is over the top of it. However, if we save it and then inspect and delete that image again. So imagine this thing, the image broke for some reason, didn't load. You're going to have a fallback color, which will at least allow the person to read their text. So this is sort of fringy edge stuff, but something to be aware of, something you can use to your advantage. So just being aware that you have these ability to remove the background, and then if necessary, force a contrast color of the text to the background. But most of the time you can leave this at default and everything is fine. So I hope that helps. The sections in Layout Builder give you the opportunity to change the
Sorry, that decided to play on again on its own. So thank you, Mark, for that. I will give a ton of credit to Mark and his team, because I think they've put an absolutely dedicated amount of time to making sure that everything was accessible. As a designer, I want to make cool, pretty stuff, and that's fun to do, but it is challenging in the accessibility environment, and they work hard to make sure that I follow the rules, and they help me. And honestly, I think in most cases it enhances the components quite a bit. So things like considering if an image is going to break and what to do, and those kinds of workarounds are really, really cool stuff. And they've thought about a lot of that, and we're open to anything you all find while you're using the tool. If you find anything, accessibility is paramount for us. So if there's anything you find that isn't accessible, please send it our way, and we'll do our best to improve that. Any questions about what we just watched about either the section styles or spacing or the accessibility stuff? Okay, cool. Well, please, we're going to spend a little time at the end just for a general discussion. So please speak up then, because I know that there's definitely stuff to talk about with this tool. And if you have any questions that are really detailed, we can get into that in another setting. But if you just have some basic stuff you want to talk through after this last presentation, please do that. We definitely want to make this more of a speaking at you and more of a speaking with you. So I'm going to move on to Tatiana's presentation about SEO and layout. Please, again, ask any questions you have in the chat. She's available to answer questions about that. And we can discuss the whole presentation or the whole meeting just in a second after this is done. So hold on one sec.
Hi, my name is Tatiana Muniz. I'm the SEO copywriter here in Strategic Communications at UC Davis, and I'm going to talk about layouts and SEO. But first, I want to ask you a few questions, and keep in mind that UX and UI and SEO go together as you're answering these. Feel free to write your answers in the chat box whenever throughout the whole presentation. We're going to revisit this at the end. So number 1, what do search engines care about most? Number 2, what do search engines care about least? And number 3, what do search engines absolutely hate? So go ahead and write down your answers and let me know what you think. All right, so first, clarity and readability. A clear and readable web page layout makes it easy for users to find the information they are looking for. This can help improve your website's bounce rate, which is a factor that most search engines use in the ranking algorithm. So keep in mind these questions. Is your navigation intuitive? Do you have clear titles and headers? And is your reading level grade 7 to 8? That's a big one for us here at UC Davis, since we like to make our writing a little bit higher level since we're a university. But it's important to lower that grade level so that it's more accessible and so that Google and other search engines will prioritize our content because it's seen as being made for everybody. Number 2, use of keywords. A well-designed web page layout can help you actually use your keywords effectively. This can help your site rank higher for relevant search terms. So is your primary keyword in your title and headers? Are your secondary keywords in your headers and body paragraphs? Do you have keywords in your URL and meta description? You want to make sure that your target keywords are prioritized and easy to see. Images aren't just a great way to improve the visual appeal of your site. Search engines have actually been prioritizing images above websites on search engine results pages. So ask yourself, are my images relevant to my content or purely decorative? Does every image use appropriate keywords in the alt text and file name? Are my images too large or too small for web? Too large and it can really hurt your page speed. Too small and it just doesn't look very good. It's too low quality for people to see. All right, mobile friendly design. So more people are using their mobile devices to access the internet, and search engines are making mobile a priority. So mobile friendly sites will outrank those that aren't mobile friendly. Ask yourself, does my website have a responsive layout? Is my content readable on a mobile device? Are links and buttons easy to tap? Basically, you should be prioritizing your mobile design over your desktop. So here are some things to keep in mind. You want to have responsive design. You want it to be mobile friendly. You want to have fast page speed. You want to have internal linking. I know that this might be kind of confusing, but for search engines, they will prioritize your pages that have more internal links because to them, that's telling them that that page is more important than other pages. You want to have clear content that is very easy to read and to figure out what are we talking about on this page. You want to have good metadata, make sure all of your pages have optimized metadata, especially for sites that are relying mostly on visuals. In that case, you need to prioritize your metadata so that search engines will know how to categorize your page. You, of course, need to have relevant keywords as always and make sure that they're easily seen. You want to have alt tags and file names. That kind of goes along with metadata, but just make sure you have those not just for accessibility, which is extremely important, but so that you just have a good user experience in general and so that search engines can categorize your site. You want to have data tracking because you need to know what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, and you can see that with data. And keep in mind your URL structure and just the structure of your site in general. It should be very clear and easy to navigate. So let's go over some examples of optimized versus unoptimized layouts. But first, let's go back to those questions. So what do search engines care about most? They care about making it easier for users to find what they're searching for. In other words, you need to have relevant content and you need to have intuitive design, because those two things are going to help users easily find the answers to their questions. 2, what do search engines care about least? Content that is irrelevant to the search query or relevant content that's hard to find. In other words, making it harder for users to find what they're searching for. 3, what do search engines absolutely hate? Misinformation, spam, and harmful content. If you're engaging in any of these, if any of your content is misinformation, spam, or is harmful to your users, you will be deranked. Best case scenario. Worst case scenario, your whole website will be banned by search engines. So here's our first example of an unoptimized homepage. This is Zara. This is a clothing store, and this is the whole homepage. It just is flipping through photos. There's not really a navigation. You'd have to go into the hamburger menu to open that up, but it's really hard to see in that top left corner. Folks might have to resort to going into the search bar to find whatever they're looking for if they're confused. And that's what we don't want, right? Like this would be great as a digital lookbook, as a magazine that's just focusing on visuals. But as a clothing store, it's kind of hard to navigate this just from looking at it. And notice how the only words really that are prominent on the page are Zara, and that's it. Search engines aren't going to be able to tell that this is a clothing store from just this page by itself, because the only word on here is Zara and it doesn't say women's clothing anywhere, for example. It really heavily relies on the metadata to be categorized correctly. Our next example is an IMDb page. Basically, the only bad part about this layout is that it's very, very cluttered. So it's very hard to find anything specific that somebody might be searching for about this actor. Also pay attention to the headers. They're very general, like producer, soundtrack, personal details. Did you know? It's not really utilizing the actor's name. It's just kind of a compilation of everything. And it's hard to tell what is the priority here. And what's worse is that in the sidebar, you have a whole bunch of other items that are unrelated to what you're looking at. That makes it easy to detract from the main content on the page. Here's an example that's good. This is an optimized homepage. We can see that the navigation is super crisp and clear. It's easy to read. It's not cluttered. We have a very clear call to action. We even have a little bit of animation to get our attention. And we have great headers here that have interesting keywords. And we have different kinds of media involved. So it's very attractive. It makes you want to click through to more pages. And it's easy to see what this page is about. It's about clean energy. It's about solar power, technology solutions. It's just very easy to understand what this web page is selling you. This is a good example. And here's an example of an optimized page, just a regular page in a website. This one is very clearly a wine 101 guide. You can tell from the headers that it's answering some really basic questions about red wine versus white wine. Just based on the content that I'm seeing here, I can tell that they did their keyword research and they actually based this page off of the keyword research. So they created their outline first, more than likely, and then they put the words to the outline to answer people's questions, because I can tell that they're using really high monthly search volume keywords, high ranking keywords, and it is ranking really well. I checked in Google, it's in the top 10. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Their target keywords are prioritized. They have great images, very clear images that space out the content and make it easy to read. They have a lot of good internal links that say to search engines that this is a high priority page. So I really recommend following this example for your own content, especially if you're writing an article or a blog post. And here is a no example. Basically what we were talking about, that number 3 question, what do search engines absolutely hate? They hate pages like this. In fact, Google put this specific example in their guidelines for page raters to say if a page looks like this, they get the absolute lowest ranking. Not only will Google derank a page like this, they could actually ban it because it is harmful to users. The design is not only bad in that, I mean, if you look at the headers, they're not very helpful. The call to action is not very helpful. This sidebar shows a lot of spammy, repeated content, but it's not just bad in its design, it's bad in its content, because it's telling folks that if they provide their personal information, their loans will just disappear. And that's just simply incorrect. It's false information. It's harmful information. So never do something like this. I don't have to tell you that because I know you won't do something like this, of course, but this is an example of bannable content. And that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions you have on SEO and layouts. Thank you. Hi, my name is Tatiana Muniz. I'm the Okay, yeah. So thank you for watching that. I just want to quickly say to refer back to Tom's comment on a web page being an essay for design. That is 100% correct. It is like an essay. For content, please do not put an essay in your web pages and don't make it look like large paragraphs that are just continuous, because it's very overwhelming. Remember that the way we want to write is kind of like how journalists write. They write in an inverted pyramid where the most important information is at the top and easy to find, easy to read. And you also want to remember that people don't really read web pages fully. They scan them. So you want to write in like an F or E pattern where you have like a header and then a chunk of text and then a header and a chunk of text, or break it up by images. And I think the content blocks that we've shown here are great because it breaks up content really well. I'm sorry I didn't use the layout builder as my examples. I didn't have a chance to play with that, but I hope you just got a general gist of like what looks good and what doesn't, and what search engines actually like. With the bounce rate, I can look into that. I've heard that Google doesn't like it when there's a high bounce rate, but it can also be seen as high engagement. And I know that that's a recent change that Google has made with GA4. So I don't know. I have to look into it. But in the past, that's what it was. So
if you could figure out exactly what Google does or doesn't like, you'd be a millionaire. You wouldn't be in this meeting. So
yeah,
Well,
definitely.
I'll add to that the bounce rate thing. I think aside from the search ranking of viability of bounce rate, I think we've all looked at this as a metric for years and wondered exactly what Anthony mentioned. It definitely, from a user experience standpoint, depends on whether the page, in my opinion, is in a user flow. So if you have a page that's part of a multi-page user flow, like you have a journey that you're taking your users through, and that has a high bounce rate, that's not good, right? Because they're leaving the journey and they're now they're not getting to the conversion whether it's a program you want them to see or some other kind of conversion, they're not getting there. So if you have a high bounce rate as a page on a page like that, that's definitely a problem. If it's a one-page journey, which like the login example that was mentioned, or even articles sometimes, and we're trying to reduce our bounce rate on articles by introducing related articles and things like that to get them into a user flow. But a lot of those are found through search, right? You search a subject, you find an article on dog food, and it's part of our website, and you read the article and you leave, right? A high bounce rate on that is not as big a deal as a part of a journey. If it's part of a user journey, you have a high bounce rate, you've got a major problem. And yes, Tatiana, I definitely meant design essay, not text essay. Don't fill your pages full of text. The only pages that work that way are kind of those examples that Tatiana gave around the kind of the Wine 101 page, where they've now broken it into sections that are digestible. They've used their keywords, they've got their appropriate titles, and they've broken it up visually, so it's not just a giant wall of text. You don't ever want a giant wall of text. Even if it's a deep informational page on your site, please break those up with section titles, because it's so intimidating to a user. They lose the physical ability to read it at some point. So keep that in mind. And then one more pattern I would throw into your F and E patterns, Tatiana, is the Z pattern. So a Z pattern is if you have, like an example would be our alignable promos. Like if you have an image, title, and call to action on one side, and then you flip it on the other side, the reader can go like this. The user can go back and forth in a Z pattern. So that's another enjoyable pattern for users that you can use, and especially with those new components.
Yes, and I just wanted to add real quick, for some items like videos, for example, if you want those to be considered primary content, you've got to put them at the top of the page or towards the top above the fold. You want Google and other search engines to see it and index it, because the lower that is on the page, the less likely it is to be indexed. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Tatiana. I think that was a good bookend to all of the layout builder stuff. Do we have any questions from the group? Is there anything that you want to talk about about layout builder, about the SEO stuff, about anything WebWorkers in general? Do you like the format of the meetings? We want to hear from you. So, if you have anything you want to talk about, we have kind of an open forum for the next couple of minutes. And chat questions are fine too. If you don't want to speak up, that's totally fine. Okay, well, we know we've gone a little bit beyond our time. Oh, no problem, Corey. Just wanted to say thank you, and we appreciate that. I will just defer to the IET team. I think this is just absolutely phenomenal work from their group. Stratcom certainly participated, but the bulk of the work came from Mark and Anthony and a couple of other folks in IET, and it is really just a leap forward to a point where I am super excited to get back into SiteFarm to make cool stuff again, because it's so much easier to do. And it's I told Mark and Anthony both that just a couple of little things like adding the color swatches and being able to have these custom sections, and certainly the library, that's going to cut major time off of my workflows personally, and I know that it will be the same for folks in your department. So hope that all of you get a chance to play with the tool when it comes out. As Sean mentioned in the chat, it's going to be pushed this weekend, so it should be live Monday. Is that correct, Sean?
Yeah, it takes about 12 hours to do everybody's site. We're going to start it Friday night. It should be done by, oh, let's just say noon on Saturday. If you are really itching to get to this over the weekend and work over the weekend, I mean, you know, go ahead. But yeah, Monday morning, we should all be sitting pretty.
Awesome. And there was a question about how to access all this video, this whole meeting. So that's going to be in the communications brand guide again. The link was put into the chat. We'll be putting not only this entire presentation, the whole recording, but also those individual presentations for you to access as well. It's going to take us a couple of days because we got to get them all loaded into YouTube and all that stuff, but we will send out a message to the WebWorkers Slack channel to let you guys know when those are all uploaded. And you may have noticed, if you participated in these before, we did not have a quiz this time. What I'd like to do is actually have a quiz, a layout builder quiz in a couple of weeks. So please get into the tool and play around with the tool, and I will send a quiz out to the Slack channel to kind of see how you guys see if your understanding of the tool is up to snuff, and maybe even give you guys a couple of chances to see some of those, some more of those deep cuts that Anthony and Mark mentioned.
I feel like we should hide an Easter egg so that someone like have one of those. Did you find the Waldo or something? You know?
Well, now you've just volunteered, Anthony. So there's going to be an Easter egg as well that will be part of the quiz. But yeah, I wanted to get you guys in there and have you play with the tool. And like Mark said, you know, this is additive. So go in there, have fun with it. You know, you can make pages that never are published or whatever you need to do just to see what you can do with the tool. And then I think, you know, a lot of concerns with roles and things like that that have been brought up are valid. So, you know, we'll talk through that with the team and see what the best way to kind of give you guys an outline of the best way to manage those. But other than that, I think we'll wrap it up. We really appreciate all of you guys attending. You know, that we want to keep expanding this community. So if there's anything that you want to see in these meetings or have be a part of these meetings, please let us know. If any of you all have something exciting you're working on, either in SiteFarm or elsewhere on the web, please let us know. And we, you know, we're more than happy to have guest presenters as well. So thank you so much. We'll let you all go and have a great week.